Nick Timothy is by most measures not a household name. He's a failed spad turned columnist, a political ghostwriter for Theresa May's ill-fated 2017 campaign, and now the Conservative MP for West Suffolk. And his career resembles one long act of rehabilitation. But this week, Timothy has stepped out of the shadows with a cause that could ironically restore his relevance: the defence of free speech, particularly the right to criticise religion, including Islam, without state punishment. At first glance, this may look like yet another polemic in our culture wars. In reality, it's about the foundational principle of liberal democracy: the right to disagree, the right to dissent. Timothy's Freedom of Expression Religion Bill, co-signed by 11 MPs, proposes amending the Public Order Act to prevent it being used, as he puts it, as a de facto blasphemy act. It follows the controversial conviction of Hamit Coşkun, who, during a protest outside the Turkish consulate, set fire to a Quran and shouted that Islam was a religion of terrorism. He was found guilty of a religiously aggravated public order offence. Now, no serious liberal thinker would defend the tone of Coşkun's remarks. They were ugly, arguably gratuitous. But should offensiveness be a criminal offence? Or more pointedly, should a citizen or subject's right to offend be curtailed merely because the subject is religion, and in practice one religion in particular? Timothy argues that the state has become paralysed by fear, not of theology but of reaction, and he points to a pattern whereby criticism of Islam provokes not only outrage but actual violence, and rather than punishing the aggressors, the authorities target the speaker. He notes quite correctly that the Public Order Act, originally meant to address hooliganism and incitement, is now being wielded to prosecute those who simply express hostility or ridicule towards a particular belief system. And here lies the rub. Section 29J of the Act already provides a defence for such expression, but it only applies to Part 3A, the part concerned with inciting religious hatred. Coşkun was charged under Section 5, disorderly conduct, where that protection doesn't apply. The bill aims to close that gap. What Timothy is doing, in effect, is using his parliamentary privilege to assert the distinction between criticism of ideas and hatred of people, a line we once took for granted, but now, as he rightly warns, is being blurred by an increasingly cautious legal culture. So we don't need to be naive. This is not a neutral space. The political left has noticeably been reluctant to defend Coşkun, not because they support religious censorship, but because they fear the optics. And the right, meanwhile, risks turning this into a cudgel against Muslims, fueling the same grievance politics they claim to oppose. Yet Timothy is making a more sophisticated case. He cites not only Salman Rushdie, whose ordeal should haunt any civilized society, but also the teacher from Batley, still hiding after showing an image of the Prophet Muhammad in a classroom. The real danger, he argues, is not prosecution, but chilling effect, the slow, bureaucratic surrender of intellectual freedom to intimidation. And that brings us to his own motives. Is this a principled stand or a calculated leap into a passing bandwagon? After all, this is a man whose political gravitas collapsed with the May administration. He's long tried to cast himself as a latter-day Joseph Chamberlain, localized, moralistic, defiantly middle-brow. But the political world has moved on, has viewed him as yesterday's man. Perhaps this bill is in part a comeback attempt. But to dismiss it on the basis of that is to miss the point. This isn't Nick Timothy's career, and that's not what it's about. It's about whether the right to insult, to offend, to ridicule still applies when the sacred is challenged. If Parliament's abolition of blasphemy laws in 2008 meant anything, it must mean that. And if it needs the tinkering of Nick Timothy, then that must be a good thing. Coşkun's case may not be sympathetic, but his conviction, based on how others reacted to his protest, sets a grim precedent. It is, as Timothy says, grotesque to hold a speaker legally responsible for the violence of his opponents. This is not the rule of law, it's the rule of the mob. We shouldn't be prosecuting somebody because of the response of somebody else. In Pakistan, as we know, blasphemy laws destroy lives. They are political tools dressed in religious garb. We shouldn't pretend we are anywhere near that precipice, but the shadows of it are visible, and they grow longer when good people fall silent. We mustn't let politeness become a muzzle, nor fear become a lawmaker. The place to defend Islam is in the classroom. We need a bifurcate solution. Part of it, I think, is a law like the one that Nick Timothy proposes, and part of it is to strengthen the role of religious education in our schools and universities. You may loathe Choshkun's views. I do. You may find Nick Timothy opportunistic. I do. But on this issue, he is, I think, unambiguously right.